Wake Up with Patti Katter.
I love the show.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
I turn it on and turn it up.
You're listening to and watching Wake Up with Patti Katter. This morning, I have Andrew Lees on the show, and he is with That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Correct, Andrew?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. I'm really happy to have you here today. I actually know your partner, Clint. I met him at Podfest a couple of years ago, which is crazy because you and I were recently on Mike Young's show, and I didn't put two and two together until after the show. So I'm very happy to interview you, to have you on the show. I want to talk about some of the things that you're doing. Before I gab too much, would you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about where you're from and what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Patti, for having me on the show. And it is kind of crazy that you know Clint. I missed that Podfest a couple of years ago, which I think it was like one of the last conferences before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So I was bummed to miss that. But yeah, really kind of crazy, that connection. Mike's been great. And then we have a connection with Adam Bird. So all good stuff. So yeah, I'm Andrew Lees. I am a co-host of That Entrepreneur Life. And I also own a product development and product launch strategy business called Stoke Ventures. And I have another business too called Grassracks, where we make bamboo display racks for boards, bikes, and skis. And that's kind of my biggest experience with launching a product from start to finish. I live in North Carolina with my wife, and we have a new baby actually. And it's just kind of an exciting time. And I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and I lived in Texas a little bit, and now I'm here in North Carolina. So
when you were a kid, did you like inventing things or building things, or is there anything that you can think of when you were a kid of something that you were passionate about that you're doing now?
100%. Yeah, that was definitely me for a long time. And my grandfather was an engineer, and we would always be building stuff together, working on model trains. And I was always inventing new things. Some things weren't actually new. They had already been invented, but as a kid, I kind of thought they were new. But I was always really interested in innovating things to help the world. First of all, and second of all, I always wanted to be financially independent and start a business. And I thought, I wanted to be an inventor and just invent like a million different things. And I thought, you invent something, you make $1 million, you invent something else, you make another $1 million. And I realized a lot later on that that's not exactly how it works. But I have launched a successful product business, and it took a lot. I made so many mistakes. Now I'm trying to help other people do the same, from actually developing the product to figuring out how to strategize the launch and how to actually monetize it in an effective way. But yeah, going all the way back to the beginning, I was always taking things apart and putting them back together and driving my mom nuts with that. But I think I got everything back together for the most part. So it worked out.
She's still finding, what's this bolt to?
Yeah. Like the vacuum cleaner kind of works, but not 100%. That 100%. I'm sorry, Pat.
Sorry.
I was just going to say that translates like that inventive spirit and always working on building things and taking things apart and figuring out how they work. Now I do that full time to help people with their products.
That's a really cool thing. It reminds me of, I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the inventor on the show, I can just see you now as a kid, taking some things apart, making the vacuum into a blender.
Yep.
Doing some different things there. So tell me about if I had a product, and first of all, what kind of products do you help launch?
Yeah. So there are so many different kinds of products, from physical products to like software as a service type products and mobile apps. I do help with all of it. my specialty, my background is in mechanical engineering, and aerospace engineering. So
Wow.
I don't develop aerospace products really, but that background kind of allowed me to have some, some extra mechanical engineering experience that's just helped along the way. But so my focus, the engineering work that I do is focused on mechanical. But in order to, somewhere along the line, I realized that if I want to not just have kind of build a job for myself, because I started on my own in 2014. So if I started doing some consulting work, and I realized that I was really all I had done was really just created a job for myself. I was only doing I was only helping people develop products that I could help develop, and that, were just mechanical in nature. But there's so many different people have so many different, product ideas out there that range from mechanical to electromechanical. A lot of things are connected now with Bluetooth and IoT, Internet of Things. And then there's soft goods, and there's mobile apps, and there's software as a service. There's all these different things that I knew I personally couldn't help with engineering for all of it. So I work with a team of engineers who help me with some of that stuff. So now I can offer more of like a full end-to-end service. I can help with connected devices, electromechanical type things, purely mechanical, even mobile apps. We do mobile apps too. So, and there's different ways. And from the strategy part of it, there's different ways that you want to launch each type of product. But there's plenty of like common things. There's things that you want to focus on no matter what you're launching to really help you be successful. So those are the kind of things I like to focus on.
Mm-hmm. What has been your favorite product that you've created and launched?
So my favorite product is definitely Grassracks, which is one of the products that I own, and it's a line of bamboo, and we also have another material, Baltic birch now, but it's a line of display racks for boards, bikes, and skis. I snowboard, surf, skateboard, and a bunch of years ago, I decided that I wanted to display all my boards in my condo. And I'm like, I had like a kind of a loft condo type thing, and I wanted to be able to display all my gear and just, make it look really cool. And as a guy, I didn't have really, too many decorations. I wasn't really good with that. There's some guys are, but I'm not. So I'm like, all right, at least I can have all my cool gear displayed here. But I looked around, I couldn't find anything that I would really be proud to, I couldn't find any racks that I would be proud to put in my condo. So I just started design. At the time I had already been doing product development engineering. I was working for another company. So I'm like, hey, why don't I do this myself? I'll design the racks. And then I thought, hey, I think there's a need here, because there's a lot of metal, foam, plasticky kind of junky type stuff out there that you might put in your garage, but you're definitely not going to be happy putting it in a living space. So Grassracks is definitely my baby. That's where I really have learned how to actually develop and launch a product from start to finish. I think a lot of engineering product development companies, even the one I worked for up in Pennsylvania for a while, great guys, great engineers, but they had never actually launched a product themselves. So they were working with people who, were trying to launch products. They didn't really know the whole process. And if you don't know the whole process, it's hard to do one component of it if you don't understand the big picture. So Grassracks has been the thing that I love the most.
Mm-hmm. I can see where it would be really intimidating too, because I know whatever project it is that I start out on, I sometimes get intimidated by things if I don't know how it works. And so for those people out there listening, if you have a product that you have and you just don't even know where to start, I would definitely say get a hold of Andrew, because he can help you cut through a lot of time just by going, straight to him, and he can get all the information that you need. Andrew, I have to ask you, because you said that you skateboard and you biking and all that stuff.
Yeah.
what were your parents like when you were growing up doing all these things? Like, were they ever worried that you were going to get hurt? I know my son, he was a skateboarder. Near Fort Bragg, they had a big skate park and it was really cool. But I remember he dropped in on a big ramp one day and I mean, my heart would just be like, oh my gosh. So how was that?
My mom, so I was not allowed to skateboard for a while when I was younger. I don't remember when I first started skateboarding. It was probably around like 14, 15, but before that I wasn't allowed to. And I kind of understand, it is dangerous, but there was definitely some apprehension there for my mom. But actually it's funny because one of my neighbors ended up being the biggest stickler, like for wearing a helmet. I wouldn't wear my helmet all the time. And my mom would try and encourage me, but she saw that I was getting better too. So I wasn't like falling a lot. But my one neighbor was, anytime he saw me without a helmet, he would yell at me. I'm like, dude, I know you, but I don't know you that well. So, but yeah, it is a little dangerous, but as long as you get the right gear and as long as you're, kind of learning the fundamentals and being kind of careful, it's okay.
What I think it's crazy about skateboarding is, you just have to put yourself out there. If you're going to drop in on a, whatever those are called.
Ramps, quarter pipes, or
like the quarter pipe, for example. Like if you're going to drop in on that, you have to think like, I'm not going to fall, because if you psych yourself out, you're going to fall. I've done the little tiny ramps, with them. But that's
kind of go over bumps or whatever. The dropping in is, if you can do that, if your son can do that, that's really impressive, because it's total commitment. There's not like, you can't kind of be part of the way down and be like, and try and make any adjustments. You have to know how to do it, commit fully, and get into it.
Yeah. That kid, he started at 6 years old about, and awesome. Those ramps were huge compared to him. So I just kind of look at that as life too, because sometimes we don't know what we're getting into in life, and you just got to go with it. Right.
Exactly.
So, what's one trial that you've had in your life, and how did you overcome that, or are you still overcoming that?
So I've had a couple of personal trials. I'd say one of the biggest personally was my parents getting divorced when I was younger. I was about 3 years old. That was pretty tough, for a while. And I think I always kind of figured out different ways of getting through it and, sort of understanding it. And I love my mom and I love my dad. They're great people. I realized that they weren't great. Now as an adult, I realized that they just weren't a good match together. And so it makes so much more sense now, and so that's one thing I think personally that I've always dealt with. And then business wise, I'd say one of this is kind of business and personal, is I was working for a consulting company in Pennsylvania. I was doing product development engineering. It was paying the bills, but like barely anything beyond that, and I was trying to start this business, Grassracks, on the side. And I was really I hit a really low point where I had maxed out 3 credit cards, or I maxed out 2. I think I was well on my way to maxing out the 3rd. And so I was really completely and totally beyond out of cash, and I still had college loans, and I'm lucky to have a supportive family, but I didn't want to ask for, I hate asking for money. It's just not, I can't do it. It's very tough. And so I just kind of figured out a plan to get out of that. And I just had to be really strategic and, careful with my money, but at the same time, take risks. Like in my business, I didn't stop the business. I didn't stop Grassracks. And as soon as I started getting some momentum and kind of digging out of that hole, I started Stoke Ventures, partially to have, I was planning on moving to Texas, where my now wife was in school down there, and she couldn't move and I could. So I'm like, it was like, just as I was digging out of that, out of those paying off those credit cards and figuring out myself financially, I was like, all right, let me start another business. That makes sense, which it did. I think it was the right move for sure. It was super scary, and I'd say I'm working every day to overcome that in a way, because I don't ever want to go back to that. I don't want to ever have those problems, those, financial problems again. And business was the solution for me for that. So it's just something, that I kind of work on every day.
And how old is your child now?
He's actually born premature. So he's, 30, his gestational age would be 33 weeks actually today. So he was born at 26 and a half weeks. He's in the NICU now. So personally, that's also another thing that my wife and I have been going through recently, but he's such a strong little guy, and works through all these different milestones and just does such a great job. We're super proud of him. So, but yeah, he's a little guy. We'll hopefully be able to bring him home in a few months, and we're super excited for that.
Wow. I didn't even realize that. That must be really, really challenging.
It's a balance, definitely juggling business and juggling, he's the priority for sure. But, like even today, we're trying to figure out like, okay, when's my wife going to go to the hospital? When am I going to go? Are we going to go together, which we normally do? And so really normally I've been working is getting up at 6 or 7, working until 12 or 1, and then we go to the hospital. So in a way it's been good to kind of figure out how to condense my schedule and just really do as much as I can in a few hours, and that's it. I can't afford to mess around with work anymore. So, but he's been doing great, and that's the important thing.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And when people meet one another, there's often a lot behind the scenes that they don't realize. So you have a couple businesses, and you went through those financial trials, but you're also going through some family trials as well. And people just really don't know what somebody else is going through, do they?
Yeah, no, you really never know. And it's easy to kind of, whether somebody looks happy or looks sad, it's so tough to really know what's going on. But it's always so cool to see people who are just like rays of sunshine. When we go to the hospital, there's certain people that we see who it's like, you're amazing. There's a guy who makes the badges when we get there. He prints out labels, and that's all he does. And he does greet people, so that's super important. But he said it to us. He's like, yeah, this is a simple job. There's nothing to it. But he makes it. He goes well above and beyond, and just makes you feel like special as you're going into the hospital, and you make this connection with him. Like, it's so incredible. And so many people wouldn't do that. They'd be like, I've got this sort of basic, boring job, and I'm just going to I'm not going to be happy about it. That's going to carry over. People are going to notice that. But man, it's so cool when you see people who, even if he could be going through something heavy, and I don't even know, but it's so cool to see people who are just like, you know what, I'm not going to let that define me. I'm going to, if I can be inspirational or helpful in any way, even just a positive influence for people. It's so cool when people are doing that. And that's what you do on your show. So I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important. It just helps us all keep going in the right direction,
Yeah, for sure.
So if there's somebody watching the show and they're interested in saying like, hey man, I have this product idea. Do you help from the idea all the way into being, or where do you start?
Yeah, right from the beginning, I can help with at any point, even if you've already launched a product and you're kind of struggling with how to really get it out there and how to get more eyeballs on it and to sell it and have, if you're really struggling to market and sell it, I can help with that too. But I can also all the way back from the beginning where you have that initial idea. I love helping people all the way through. So it could just be something that popped into your head last night and you're like, you know what? I think this is a pretty cool product idea. you just want to bounce it off of somebody, I'm happy to do that. Happy to, take a call with somebody and just kind of walk them through it and explain to them what my process is, and maybe give them some ideas, some pointers, and then we can just take it from there. If it seems like something they'd want to move forward with, there's different things we can do, from going through the product launch strategy. And then if it makes sense then to develop it, we can, I can look at what it would take to actually engineer and manufacture the product. So really any stage I'm good with, but I love taking those ideas from start to finish.
I think that's one of the things I love about you. So we were talking about the man in the hospital, how he just prints these labels, and how people have all these things going on behind the scenes. And you're just a really good example of somebody who has a lot going on. But I think that makes you more caring in a way. And so I know I'm more apt to do business with somebody who actually is caring and who's putting themselves out there and who's authentic and saying, hey, look, I'm this human being, and you're an incredible human being, Andrew. And
thank you.
I was so happy to connect with you. And as a business owner, you are the type of business owner I would want to go to for help. So
cool. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Patti.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Could you share your social media outlets with our listeners?
Yeah, it's at Stoke Ventures, and then at That Entrepreneur Life USA. And if you want to check out Grassracks, it's at Grassracks.
All right. Now, your podcast, really quick, before we wrap it up, could you tell our listeners a little bit about what is that about?
Yeah, for sure. So the simple way I like to explain it to people is it's kind of like how I built this, but with more strategic, tactical information. So we're looking to understand the entrepreneur's journey. So every entrepreneur we have on, we want to understand their journey and where they came from. How did they get into entrepreneurship? How did they start their business or businesses? But then we also really want to dive into how do they get from idea to monetization? Because in business, that's kind of the point, right? We get into business to add value to people's lives, to then make money. And give us a means for us to live, right? Like we're trying to make a living as entrepreneurs, and definitely money is important to that. So we're trying to figure out what are the things in everybody's business that they're doing that is actually helping, that's moving the needle, that that somebody else could listen to and say, oh, I haven't tried that yet. That's a great idea. Let me try that. And we want them to be able to implement those strategies like right away in their business.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, Andrew. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And to our listeners, everybody who is listening to the podcast, then make sure you go to the notes for all of Andrew's links to his businesses and his podcast, The Entrepreneur Life. And those watching, obviously, you're seeing it on the screen right now. And everybody, I just really encourage you, if you know somebody who's starting a business, if they have some products, have them reach out to Andrew. He's a friend of mine. I trust him. And that means a lot, as you know, as a listener. I only promote the best. So, Andrew, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks so much, Patti. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. I always love talking about business and, personal things. So it was great to be on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And if you're listening on the radio, don't forget the show is on every Wednesday and Friday. Take care and have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to Wake Up with Patti Katter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
Follow Patti at Patti Katter on Facebook and Instagram.
Get social.
You can now watch Wake Up with Patti Katter on Amazon TV and Roku.
It's the only podcast I listen to.
Be sure to check out Patti's apparel line, The Patriotic Mermaid, at thepatrioticmermaid.com and on social media at The Patriotic Mermaid.
I love it.